Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of a Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the Ukrainian conflict, where during the previous nights, once again, both the Russians and the Ukrainians attacked each other with drones. And this picture was published this morning by pro-Ukrainian sources, and according to this picture, the Ukrainians used at least 100 or around 190 drones to attack the theater of Russia. And there were, according to this picture, at least 3 routes of attack. And you know that this is a very interesting situation because during the night we received lots of updates about explosions, about the places and sites that were attacked by the Ukrainians. And right before this attack was launched by the Ukrainian forces, we received this article published by pro-Russian sources. Russia issued a special warning to the Baltic countries over their decision to open their airspace to the flight of Ukrainian drones, said Russian Foreign Minister Special Representative Maria Zakharova. They were warned. If they don't understand, they will get a response, the diplomat noted. So the Russians are trying to tell us the following: that the Baltic states during the previous days opened their airspace for Ukraine to attack the theater of Russia. And since that moment, the Ukrainians have possibilities to attack their drones, to launch their drones, not, let's say, from the northern parts of Ukraine, let's say, using these directions of attacks. Now the Ukrainians, according to this information, are able to use their drones to attack the theater of Russia, let's say, using these routes of attack, and to enter the airspace of Russia in places where the Russians don't expect this. So, and the Russians warned the Baltic states that they must close their airspace for Ukraine drone, and if they don't do this, then the Russians will make an answer or something like this. And the most important thing of this situation is that overnight we received lots of updates that several drones managed to hit and to get to the city of Ust-Luga once again and to attack the port infrastructure in this area. And this picture and this video was published this morning by several pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see an explosion that took place, according to the author of this article, on the territory of the city of Ust-Luga, on the territory of this port infrastructure. And several pro-Russian sources claimed or speculated that maybe these drones entered the territory of Leningrad region through the territory of the Baltic states, through their airspace that recently was opened for Ukrainian forces. So of course the Russians will investigate this case, this situation, and then they will make a decision what to do next. But as of the morning of the 7th of April of 2026, we received a report that the Russians have prepared at least 3 missiles, 3 Oreshnik type missiles. Russia may soon again use the Oreshnik against the Ukrainian targets in the central and western Ukraine, including Kiev, Ukraine Monitoring Resources report. The most important thing that the sources are saying that there are 3 missiles, 2 of them are Oreshnik missiles, and 1 missile is a missile of unknown type. So nobody knows what exactly is the 3rd missile and what kind of targets the Russians are going to attack within the next days. So very difficult to understand, of course, but once again, according to this article, the Russians could attack the western parts of Ukraine, the Lvov Oblast, the Lvov region, and many other different towns and cities exactly in this area. So of course, let's wait and see what the Russians are going to do with this. Another important thing is that during the previous night, the Russians also attacked the theater of Ukraine, and the pro-Ukrainian sources stated that Russians used 110 drones to attack the theater of Ukraine. And according to updates that we received this morning, most of the strikes took place, as you can see, in the Chernihiv region and in the northern parts of Sumy region. So there were explosions on the theater of the city of Chernihiv itself. We have lots of updates on this matter. There were strikes in the area of the settlement of Rybki. We have strikes in Khmolny. Some warehouses were damaged and destroyed. We have reports that the Russians attacked Novgorod-Seversky, the settlement almost in the most northeastern parts of Ukraine. The settlement of Volna was attacked, and the settlement of Priluki was attacked, its central part, and the sources are saying that the Russians attacked the city council, so the government office, that was destroyed, as you can see. Maybe the Ukrainians used this government office as a recruit center, who knows, but this is not the only place where the Russians attacked the government office of Ukraine. The city of Priluki was under attack, and the city of Novgorod-Seversky, both cities, both city councils were damaged and destroyed on the territory of these settlements. So this is what the Russians Russians were attacking overnight, and of course the city of Odessa. During the night, lots of explosions and fire anomalies were recorded in this area as well. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to happen next, but if Russians are going to launch 3 Oreshnik systems at the same time, this is going to be a very expensive situation, obviously, and it seems that the Russians may plan to attack something very important. Different experts speculated and projected that probably the Russians would attack the Lvov region, more precisely the gas storage of Ukraine in the area of the city of Stry. So they will try to destroy this gas storage facility with the purpose to destroy this storage completely. Very difficult to understand how exactly the Russians are planning to break through and to breach the shelter of this gas facility, but maybe the Russians understand what they're doing. Another important thing that during the previous nights, the city of Rossach was attacked by the Ukrainians, and according to information we have, this chemical plant was damaged by the Ukrainians. It seems that this is another key chemical plant of the Russian Federation that produce ammonia and probably different parts for fuel that the Russians use for their missiles or drones or something like this. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Sumy direction, where the Russians are keeping infiltrating, and according to information we have, during the previous night the Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Ryasne, and according to these changes, as we can see, the Russians most likely have entered the southeastern and the eastern parts of the settlement, which means that the clashes are going to take place very soon for this village. The Kharkiv direction, during the previous night we haven't received anything special. Probably the only video from the western area. So this is the video. This is probably another video where the consequences of attack overnight. Yes, it seems that another fuel depot of the armored forces of Ukraine was damaged and destroyed to the south of the settlement of Akhtirka. Here we can see a civilian driving through this area, and he was making a video of a very huge fire and smoke over this object of energy infrastructure. The Slaviansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of updates of how Russians were attacking and bombing positions of the armored forces of Ukraine on the territory of the city of Alexandrovka, and as you can see, we are no longer receiving updates to the east of the city of Alexandrovka, only the updates from this territory, and these attacks and these artillery strikes confirm probably the current line of combat contact, and the most important thing that these attacks and these strikes with artillery confirm that the Russians are actively trying to break through Ukraine's defense and to answer the settlement of Alexandrovka with soldiers with the purpose to dig in deeper and to begin the battle for this area. The Konstantinovka direction. During the previous night we received a small updates from the area of Bereztok. We have added additional contested area because overnight we received a video of how Russians were attacking Ukrainian soldiers along this tree line. It seems that Ukrainians still had access to the settlement of Bereztok through these positions, and the Russians were trying to secure this area with FPV drones. The Dobropolye direction. During the previous 12 hours we received a lot of updates. As you can see, it seems that this direction is becoming very active for both the Russians and the Ukrainians. We've received lots of updates, lots of map updates in this area since the beginning of this month. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 30th of March of 2026, and from this moment the map began adjusting almost every single day, and we were adding sometimes a contested area in Russian favor, sometimes we removed the contested area in the favor of the armored forces of Ukraine. So it seems that there is a very heavy combat clashes between positions of Russian or in the area of Rodinska, Novoshachova, and Ukraine positions in the area of Dobropolye. As for the latest updates, the Russians, it seems, are about to establish complete control over the mine by the name of Zaporozhka, this one which is located to the west of the city of Rodinska. But from the other side, we see that the Ukrainians are keeping advancing in the area of the settlement of Dobropolye. During the previous days, the Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly in this area and to recapture the settlement of Volne and to recapture at least half of the village of Novodonbass. And according to these updates, we see that the first sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armored forces of Ukraine managed to cut the main logistic lines that the Russians used to support their contingents on the territories of the villages of Ivanovka, Novoshachova, and Novodonbass. So the Ukrainians are taking in pincer entered this pocket with the purpose to force the Russians to fall back from this area and to improve the positions of the Dobropolye contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine before the beginning of a major battle for this area. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians are keeping advancing. During the previous night, we received additional batch of changes. So this is the situation by the end of the, of the 3rd of April of 2026. It seems that this is the moment when everything started, when the Russians began their major offensive operation, and it seems that this is the moment when the Russians managed to break through Ukraine's defense, at least in the direction of the city of Oreshnik and Gulia-Polska. According to information we have, additional sabotage and reconnaissance groups managed to improve their positions around the settlement of Gulia-Polska itself from the south, from the east, and from the northeast, and the Russians are keeping advancing. As of now, no presence of Russians on the territory of the village was recorded, but the Russians are about to do this. Furthermore, first sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to approach the settlement of Yegorovka and Novoselovka. It seems that the Russians are trying to cut this line and to cut these two villages from supplying support. We're talking about Novoselovka and Gulia-Polska. Furthermore, the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly around the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. Basically, the village was taken by Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups and pincers from the south and from the north. And furthermore, the Russians improved their positions significantly in the southeastern parts of the settlement of Vostrizhivka. Furthermore, the Russians are keeping bombing the settlement of Vostrizhivka with aviation, with artillery, trying to force the Ukrainians to fall back from this area without showing a resistance. So, according to this point, according to these map changes, we can say that from this perspective, from this configuration, if the Ukrainians are not going to do anything with this, they will lose control over these two villages in coming days. So we have covered most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Probably there were few more important statements. Yes, there was a statement made by Zelensky. He proposed an energy truce to Russia. If Russia stops attacks on Ukraine's energy sector, we will respond in kind. He stated most likely he has information that the Russians are planning to use the Oreshnik missile systems to attack probably the gas storage around the city of village of Stry. So that is why Zelensky is trying to avoid this situation. The Ukraine authorities stated that they have enough of human resources to continue fighting for another 10 years and even more. That was stated by a deputy of Ukraine Parliament, Mizhenka. So as you can see, from one side, the Ukrainians are trying to start some ceasefire truce, energy truce, but from the other side, we see that the Ukrainians are preparing themselves for 10 more years of clashes and fightings with Russians. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. Today is the Tuesday of the 7th of April of 2026. We have lots of interesting statements made during the previous nights. Big political scandal is brewing in Washington. Let's discuss everything in details. Iran is charging ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz in yuan, which threatens the dollar's position. This was stated by American Senator Lindsey Graham. He noted that since 1974, oil has been traded in dollars worldwide, and Iran switch to the yuan is seen as an attack on the US currency. So we see that most likely something big is inevitable, and most likely this is going to happen as was announced by the President of the United States of America at 8 p.m. Tuesday, 7th of April of 2026. Meanwhile, we received the report that the political scandal is escalating in Washington. Democratic Representative Yasamin Ansari has announced the introduction of impeachment articles against the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And probably due to this situation, today's Pentagon briefing with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has been cancelled, and that was stated by the U.S. Defense Department. Another important thing is that the statement of the President of the United States of America that he made yesterday in the evening, the entire country could be taken out in one night, and that night could be tomorrow. tomorrow night. So the President of the United States of America most likely will finish everything he started and will do everything he promised. So which means that most likely on Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. and when talking about Iran, this is going to be a 3rd of 8th of April and around 3 a.m. or something like this. And during this period of time, the United States of America and the coalition will begin bombing and attacking the state of Iran significantly, as they haven't attacked before. As of the morning of the 7th of April, as for the Iranian time, we received lots of updates that lots of explosions were already recorded, both on the territory of Iran and on the territories of the coalition. Explosions took place on the territory of the capital, Iran, Tehran. Lots of videos were published from this area. Here we can see how the coalition was attacking and destroying helicopters on the territory of the airfield in the city of Tehran. Here we can see the first seconds after first explosions and first attacks that were carried out on Tehran during the period of time between the 6th and the 7th of April. Here we can see more explosions and more attacks that took place in the northern part. So we see that it seems that the coalition began implementing the issues for the Iranian side before ultimatum ends or expires. It seems that the states are trying to force the Iranians to accept the capitulation and the US demands before this date, before the end of ultimatum, but we know that the Iranians are staying on their positions. Furthermore, during the night we received a report that the Iranians attacked the state of Saudi Arabia, its biggest oil refinery, and lots of explosions and lots of videos were published from this area of how the Iranians were attacking Al Jubail industrial city, Saudi Arabia, and we have this picture of fire anomalies, and it seems that the Iranians managed to deal a significant damage to this object of energy infrastructure, which also first of all pushes the prices higher, but at the same time it makes Saudi Arabia probably more interested in a possible ground operation or any other escalation with the Iranians on the side of the coalition. Furthermore, during the night we received a report that the King Fahd Causeway was closed by the Bahrainians. It seems that they believe that maybe the Iranians were attacking this bridge but not the oil refinery of Saudi Arabia, so that is why they closed the bridge. And I would like to remind you that several days ago the Iranians promised to attack several bridges through the Middle East region, and this bridge is in the list. Another important thing, United Arab Emirates, lots of updates were published from this area as well. Lots of facilities, lots of gas storages, different plants were damaged during the previous days, and this situation also forces to strengthen its position and ties between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, mainly because both now see Iran as a shared threat. So this is also a very important thing, which most likely will change the Middle East region for the next century. The Iranians are keeping control over the Strait of Hormuz and they don't allow anybody to use this area. Furthermore, the Iranians continue attacking the United Arab Emirates, Dubai. Several vessels managed to cross the Strait of Hormuz during the night, but several were trying to do this but were forced to fall back. Probably they haven't received any permission from the Iranian side, or they decided or rejected to pay any fees to the Iranian side. So we can say that's just several hours left before the ultimatum expires, and then the United States of America will begin bombing and attacking the state of Iran as we haven't seen never before. So let's wait and see what is going to happen next, and the situation is very difficult. And that's it for the short video. The Military with Summary channel reminds you we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.